is a combo question from the audience here, which is, would you privatize the ferry system? And the second question was more or less, what can we do to clean up the ferry system?
Questions that I spend a lot of hours almost every single day working on. As you can see, the Kitsap Sun even editorially approved what I was trying to do here. My answer is yes, we should immediately, this afternoon, privatize ferry construction. We have no business, the ferry system has no business with a huge staff. I just got numbers from our staff about their number count. The ferry system is the temple of rubber numbers. Every time I ask them how many people work there, I get a different number. Right now, they claim they have 79 people on the staff designing ferry terminals. What the hell is that for? We got builders around here could design ferry terminals. We need 0 on that staff. We've got huge numbers of people making screw-ups day after day on this Chetsaboka. So we need to privatize the construction of ferries and make the ferry leadership focus on operating a good system.
I don't believe that we would privatize the ferry system as a whole. Could we privatize portions of it? Absolutely. Construction would be a great example of areas we could privatize. Some of the runs we may consider privatizing, the smaller runs up in the north end and some of the small runs down in the King County area. By doing that, we can create a private-public partnership. We can breed innovation. We can allow for there to be a little bit of competition in there to see if the public and private model works. We would implement it slowly. There has been mismanagement in the ferry system. You know, we've talked about the progress we've made. My opponent's talked about the progress he's made in it. Yet you see, you know, the wasted generators, the delayed boat. You look at the middle management and the wasted pay. There isn't true reform going on there. We're just shuffling the deck. We're moving the problem from one desk to the next desk to the next desk. We need strong leadership in the ferry system. We need people in legislature will go down there and say enough is enough. You're wasting our hard-earned tax dollar. We've got to get back to fiscal responsibility. And that's just not saying it. That's where you hold people accountable. Where people actually lose jobs for mismanaging our money. We've forgotten as a government that those tax dollars they're spending, wasting, and not correctly implementing is our hard-earned tax dollar.
Thank you. So now let's get down to money. Last session we saw spending increases that drastically exceeded revenue increases. If elected or re-elected, what will you do to ensure a responsible budget? Starting with you.
Let's talk about the budget. We need to create a sustainable budget. Unfortunately, the leadership in Olympia this past couple cycles has decided to use one-time fixes and try to use Band-Aids to fix the budget problem. In fact, even Moody's, which is a great organization that rates our bonding, says that we have gone from stable to negative. And why did they say that? Right in their report it says that they used one-time fixes to fix their budget. We don't have a sustainable budget. We've been robbing the pension funds, we've been raiding our rainy day fund, we've been filling the holes with one-time budget gaps that aren't going to fix the overall solution. The overall solution to the budget is going to be to create a stable revenue tax base, and that's by getting people back to work. It's going to be by reducing spending, so we're not putting out more than we take in. You know, small business, they recognize when they are on lean times, they reduce the size of their overhead, reduce the size of capital, reduce the size of payroll in order to meet their needs.
Thank you. So staying with the budget issue.
Do I get to do?
You know, as a matter of fact, I will let you.
I really want to answer this question because this is the heart of my campaign. I'll let you pay attention, please. We cannot continue to spend the amount, although the state has actually reduced the amount of spending over the last 2 years. We must fundamentally reset the state government down about 20%. I believe that we've got to hold education funding where it is and start increasing it. And we therefore have got to go to DSHS, Department of Social and Health Services, and that broad array of social and health services, and make radical downsizing cuts. That's not just dialing down the budget. We're going to have to go in and fundamentally restructure the way we do social and health services. That's the mission, the job ahead of us. For those of us in the legislature next time, is to insist that that happens and that we actually cause those kinds of reforms.
So with that, what is the toughest budget decision you will have to make in the 2011 session, Larry?
Well, I'm the Vice Chair of Health and Human Services, exactly. I am the Deputy Director, the Deputy Chair of the committee that actually runs that big pot of money. And I'll tell you, when you go in there and you look at individual health services for poor people, you look at the foster kids care, you look at the criminal justice, juvenile justice things, every one of those choices is going to be an excruciatingly difficult one. I think we've got to rethink the way we deliver these social services. Remember at the outset I talked about how I believe democracy is best done at the local level? I think we've got to start shifting those social programs down to local control, local districts like fire districts, so that we're not relying on large cadres of state and federal employees to run these programs. They need to be run locally.
Glad you brought up the idea of bringing it local to the fire service. Fire service is a great example in our organization of how we brought those things down. The toughest decisions we made in our organization when we had to retool, rethink, and refigure out how we were going to meet our budgetary needs was it affects people. That's the reality. When you affect people, when you reduce positions, it hurts. Nobody wants to see anyone lose their job. When you retool, reorganize, there's emotional attachment to programs. You got to tell people those programs aren't effective anymore. It's tough when you have to tell someone that the project that they've been working on for the last 10 years is going away. Those are the tough decisions that are going to need to be made in the 2011 budget cycle. We're going to need to reorganize, restructure, recommit the dollars that we are bringing in to the priorities of government. And some of those things that won't fit under the umbrella are going to be tough areas to cut, but they need to be cut for the good of the greater whole. But once again, it will affect people, it will affect programs, and that's emotional.
So with the funding question comes specifically, what is your plan to fully fund education?
Two-part question. You have to first define what is education. What is fully funded? I think there's a misnomer out there. One person says we just throw more money at it. One person says we need to cut money at it. I was talking with Dave LaRose from the South Kitsap School District, and really what it comes down to is, are we efficiently using our dollars? Do we need more money, or do we need to retool the way we're using that money? And if we do need more money, we need to authorize that money. And how do we do that? We fund education first. We sit down at the table as a budget committee, and when education comes in, we fully fund it, and then we take the rest of the appropriations and we distribute it where we feel necessary. That's when we ensure that our children will get the education they need in a safe environment with modern facilities and modern textbooks. But in order to do that, we have to remove the temptation as people, when we're in those budget meetings, of listening to everyone else try to steal that money. So fund it first, then pay for other things.
Thank you. Larry?
As I said, I think we need to draw a line under budget cuts in education. We've got to start increasing the funding. So this is one place where I directly disagree with my opponent. This idea that somehow you're going to find some more efficiencies, or that this gimmick of passing the education budget in the first week of the session is juvenile, silly. That's not the way legislation or budget's done. Been doing budgets now for more than 30 years. It's simply baloney. What we need to do is figure out how we're going to cut all of those other things in serious social programs and figure out how we're going to put a floor under education and start increasing it. My idea is to close tax exemptions the same way we close bases, with a nonpartisan independent commission. We tell that commission, I need X amount of dollars to increase my education funding, and you give that to me on an up or down nonpartisan basis, and we'll put that into the education system.
Thank you. So, if we're going to get into more budget stuff, one of the candidates or our participants are interested to know is how will you work to create a more equitable or less regressive tax structure in the state?
Oh, my turn? Great.
Yes.
First of all, the premise of the question is exactly right. We have an extremely regressive tax system. If you're a poor person, you pay 17 or 18% of your income in taxes, state taxes. If you're wealthy, you may pay 5 or 6%. So the poor are paying for the schools and everything that the rich are using. The problem is that we've got to completely reset our tax system. There's no one thing. I'm opposed to the new income tax. It's got some features in there that are actually a start towards sensible resetting. But we have got to start the question of taxes with what it is we're trying to do, so we know what it is we need to find money for. And then we've got to restructure the way our state tax system works so that it is much less regressive, both for individuals and for businesses. That's the work ahead of us, which means it's a public conversation, not something we're going to do in a bill at Olympia.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, taxes is a big issue in this state. And once again, we go down the path of rich versus poor. For some reason, we always want to go to the party line, the party mantra. It's the rich that are making all the money and they're forcing all the percentages on the poor. Well, last time I checked, buying bottled water, everybody buys that. Last time I checked, buying candy, everybody buys that. Last time I checked, having a beer, a lot of people have a beer, and it seems like up and down the social scale. The real issue at hand is, are we going to raise taxes? Or, that's the easy way out. Oh, we don't have enough money. What do we need to do? We need to raise taxes. The tough decision is being a leader and saying, no, we're overspending what we're bringing in. We can't just go back to the well every time we make mistakes as leaders. We can't go back to the well as we aren't managing our money well. It's like me going to my household and saying, geez, I'm not managing my money well in my household. Hey, fire department, you need to raise my income because I'm not good with my money. What we need to do is we need to get back to fundamental basics of using the money efficiently.